welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It is Carolyn here. I am by myself. This feels very strange to do an intro alone. Coming at you from the past, and I'm going to guess what Danielle is currently doing in the moment that you are listening right now. I would say she is currently petting any animal that she can get her hands on. As a reminder, this week we are switching up the format and giving you an interview with the founders of the WNBA Club Denver. Their names are Dea and Lindsey Vander Fertgus. The story of how they met is so incredibly cute. You need to hear it. And then they share all about how the WNBA Club in Denver started and grew to 8 cities in just this past year. They care about the success of the WNBA and its players so much. We can't wait for you to listen, so let's get into it. Married couple Dea and Lindsey Vander Fertgus created the WNBA Club Denver in 2023. It is now expanded to 8 cities across the United States. The WNBA Club is a social group for fans, created by fans. The club hosts watch parties, attends local games, hosts brackets for the NCAA tournament and fantasy leagues, and creates an awesome community for people to get together, watch a game, and support local businesses. We talk about all the events we attend with the WNBA Club and their ability to bring together an amazing group of people. We always have a great time when we go and are so excited to have Dea and Lindsey with us here today. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is so exciting.
It's really great to have you both. It's been great to get to know you both as well. Can you just start off by giving the listeners some background of who you both are, where you both grew up, how you became interested in women's sports? I think that would be a good place to start.
I'm Lindsey. I am originally from Canton, Ohio. We actually both are from Canton, Ohio. We have known each other since we could remember, since 7th grade. We moved to Denver in 2013. For 12 years, I was a physical education teacher, so I've always been into sports. I can remember getting into sports as early as 3rd grade. My dad just put me into baseball and I loved baseball, and then I played that until I had to move on to softball and played basketball. And then I remember a childhood friend coming over and knocking on my door and being like, hey, you should come try out for the volleyball team. So I just was into so many sports. I'm still into so many sports right now as an adult. I really like playing volleyball and I love playing softball. I just can't imagine what my life would be without sports.
That's great.
Yeah, and I'm Dea, and I feel like my story is almost a picture-perfect story. Like Lindsey's exactly the same. Grew up in Canton, Ohio, and like she said, we've known each other since middle school. And I remember sometime early in elementary school, I don't know which grade, my parents got me involved in softball, and I played basketball in the winter time. And just growing up throughout elementary, middle school, and high school, always played those sports. And when we got into middle school, because we were from the same city, we played each other. We were in the same school district, but we're at 2 different middle schools. So our teams would compete against one another. That. And then we did end up going to the same high school, but we had played softball in the summer together in summer leagues. And so when we got to high school, then we finally ended up playing softball together. But all during this time, we were just friends and super naive to being out or even knowing anything about the queer community or anything growing up, and just grew up being best friends and playing sports. I'm retired from actually playing competitive sports. I'm just afraid to get injured now at my age, but love watching sports.
We later on found out that when we started dating that we were in the same preschool class.
When did you start dating? At what age?
When I turned 21, and Dea was also 21.
I love that. So funny. So you have a picture of you two in preschool next to each other.
It's in our hallway.
Yeah, we do have a picture of it in our hallway. We actually use this as our save the date for our wedding.
Amazing.
Stop it.
That is amazing.
Who has the pigtails?
That's me. And then We just both look very angry, which we are.
Because picture days and having to wear super girly clothes was the
Yes.
worst.
For us. We both look just very ornery, very
love
ornery.
that so much.
That is great.
Do you still have friends from that time who know you before you were out and before together and then have seen you come together now?
Yeah, so basically from our softball team in high school, we've kept in touch with a group of girls and still to this day keep in touch, and they're like our sisters to us. And it was really interesting when we had to tell them about, hey, we're not just like a group of friends anymore. We're actually in love.
How did that go?
Each person handled it differently. Some were super, super excited, and others were more apprehensive that it was going to break up the whole friendship group dynamic and things. But I think as like years went on, and I think they just now just see us as this was how it was supposed to be, especially with all the signs of growing up and all the things we were into. Why didn't anybody tell us?
We knew. Now we know. I was like, oh yeah, like that's why I felt that way in third grade about so-and-so. And like,
Danielle and I talk about that a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That is such a great story. And how is Canton, Ohio? How was coming out? Was it an okay environment to come out? I don't know much about Canton, Ohio, so
coming out to our families and stuff had its own issues. I didn't come out to my family. They found out. And so that had its own things, but we didn't really experience any sort of hate or disrespect. But we also didn't feel comfortable being a couple in public either. So it was more like we were friends there. But when we moved here, we told ourselves that we were going to be our true, authentic selves. And when we both moved here, we were both teachers. And so my first year of teaching, I was like, I'm going to introduce myself on the first day and show them who my wife is and just rip that Band-Aid off and just be me. And so we never would have done that in Ohio. And I think it was just we didn't know many other lesbians or any other queer people that were living a super out life.
Yeah,
there.
I totally understand that. We are both from New Jersey and grew up close to each other, 15 minutes away from each other. And we still even feel when we go back to New Jersey. And New Jersey's a pretty progressive state. I don't know if it's something with a hometown or just people knowing me before I came out that might have something to do with it, but it was more difficult and it does feel more difficult when we go back.
So I think you said you moved to Denver in 2013, correct? So just curious about how that transition was overall. How did you start building community out here? And then how eventually did that transition over to you starting the WNBA club?
I think we found most of our community from sports, playing sports, and just being teachers and having our teacher friends, and just that community in itself is also really special to us as well. We both played volleyball and we both played softball.
Yeah, rec volleyball and softball.
Yeah, and the way that I got us connected to those teams were through the schools that we worked at. So just getting on those softball teams, and then once it's, oh, you can play. Do you want to come over and play for us on this day? Or can we get your number? Can you sub for us? So just those things. That's how we found our community. And one of the main reasons why we did move here was because my brother moved here first before us. So he moved here 2 years before us. And then I came out to see him. And then I was like, Dea, we got to go see Seth. Let's go visit. And then I think 3 months later, we were like, let's move. And we moved out. So it was a super quick transition. We just loved the mountains, loved the weather, loved the area.
What eventually made you want to start the WNBA club out here?
I briefly described to both of you how we got the amazing opportunity to volunteer at the Dallas Final Four, Women's Final Four. So when we went to the Final Four, I'm not sure if you went to these events, but Together held 2 events where one day it was Sue Bird and I forget who was with Sue. And then the other day was NECA and Diana Taurasi. So we got to go to that event before we went in for our shift with NECA and Diana Taurasi. So at the end, they opened up to the audience for questions. And I was like, Dea, we have to ask NECA. We have to try to ask her a question. I have the note right here. We wrote it down because I knew that if I got called on, I was going to be so nervous that I would lose my words. So I remember they were like, okay, we're going to open up for questions. And I kept my hand up the entire time. I never put my hand down. And they came over to me last. And I said, so I had my phone and they were joking, like NECA and Diana Taurasi were like, oh, she wrote it down. She's so serious. And I just wanted to be like, yes, because I'm so nervous. I get to talk to you. But I just said, as the president of the Players Association, Association, do you know when we could see the W expanding or adding a minor league so women have more opportunities to make it at the professional level? And I said, in addition to that, is there any action that us fans can do to make that happen? And she was like, whoa, best question of the day. This is amazing. And she just went on to say, show up to games, buy merch, watch us on TV if you can, get the WNBA app. So just listing off all of these things. And then the way that we created the group is because of Dea's idea. So I'll let her explain that.
So just being at the Final Four was super motivating and inspiring. And then just getting to hear NECA speak was like, oh my gosh, I want to do something about it. And being from Ohio, Lindsey's dad is a huge Cleveland Browns fan. And he's part of a group or an organization called the Browns Backers. And it's basically what the WNBA club is inspired from, because every Sunday he goes to his local chapter at his local bar with all his local fan group, and he's the treasurer of it. They do what we do at watch parties. So they have raffles. People just watch the games together, and people come in groups or they come alone, and they're just one tight family. They go to Browns games together. When he comes out and visits, there's, at least from when he came out and visited last, there's 3 different Denver bars that are Browns Backers chapters. So you go to their website. It's a whole database of, you type in a city and it will tell you where the closest chapter is to you, the contact information of the president, so that you can get connected, so that you can find your people in that city. And they're all over the world. So it's not just the United States, but if you travel to Europe, there's Browns Backers in Europe. So he got me connected with the person that manages the Browns Backers now, which is a person that works for the Cleveland Browns. And I got to FaceTime with him and pick his brain and ask him questions. And he just gave me some inspiration of how to keep moving forward and suggestions on what to do. But he definitely thought it was a great idea to keep doing it because it will grow. So I wanted to do that for the WNBA, because when we talk about it to our friends that aren't WNBA fans, I feel like we're just super big nerds that are talking their ear off about things that they're like, oh my gosh, you're just telling me way too much information. I just get too excited about it. And so we wanted to share that excitement with people. And so that's how the WNBA club started here.
I love that. And I know that the WNBA club is expanding to other cities. And it's such a good idea to be like, if I'm going to another city, yeah, I should reach out to the WNBA club there, because there probably is an event happening. And I know I'm going to be around like-minded people. So that's so cool.
And one of the things you mentioned is, he said it will be a good idea because it will grow. I've been thinking about that from when you all first started. We slowly started hearing about it.
How did we hear about it? Do you remember?
I think Instagram.
And I think our friend Sarah, sent it to us and was like, we should go. I feel like that might be the first time, but that's how we found you all, through Instagram, through social media, someone that we watch sports with. And again, most of our friends and family are not super, super locked in. We're getting more now through doing the podcast and through attending WNBA club parties. But what was I saying?
Well, I was asking a question.
Sorry.
And you interrupted me. Okay, just cut me off in the middle of my question.
Sorry. I get excited.
So with that,
I do that to Dea all the time.
I was just waiting for her to zip it. You mentioned that he said it would be a good idea because eventually it's going to grow. And I know just from seeing on social media, the watch parties in the beginning were definitely a smaller group. And then over time, they've become these big things. We had the opportunity to go last week and it was huge at Town Hall Collective. And you had all these vendors there and Knockout. And when I went into the room, so many people were just watching the screen. So just curious to hear the process of building it to where it's at now, from a smaller group to obviously it's much bigger now. And were there ups and downs along the way? Did you ever doubt, is this ever going to grow? So I'm curious to just hear about that whole process.
Oh man, there were so many ups and downs. I still feel like there's ups and downs. But our first thing was, where are we going to have our first watch party? The season is starting soon. We need to find a woman-owned space and see if they're on board, see if they have TVs, see if they have all the different viewing options, because there's 15 different places that a game could possibly be on. So we reached out to some places, and
the place didn't work out because of some of the things that our personal values nor the club values align with. So we decided to leave that space.
And our first watch party, and I'm putting it in air quotes, was me, Lindsey, and our longtime friend since we moved here that came to support our cause, because she's a big sports fan, women's basketball fan as well. So it was us three. And
shout out to Felicia.
Yes, yep. Shout out to Felicia for being an OG. I think at the time we had a meetup page, which I had no idea it costed money. So I was like, damn, I got to buy the subscription of Meetup to see if we can get fans and to come. And so it was always exciting to be like, oh my gosh, there's one RSVP, like someone might show up this time. And so the first couple were very few and far between, but we left so inspired from the watch parties when it was one or two people that would come, because it was like what I was feeling and what Lindsey was feeling is what they were feeling. As soon as we met, it was just like WNBA blurted out of our mouths of telling everything and anything we knew about it and just really geeking out about it.
And I think it's really important to say that when we did have our first watch party, it was a space where there's TVs all around the bar, but they went and pulled out an extra TV from the closet or wherever and put it in front of us because they could not change one of those channels because of, I don't know, football or basketball, baseball, any other, literally tag was being shown on ESPN and they were showing that other than women's basketball. So they brought it out. We did not have sound. They would not put the sound on for us. So it was just this little TV. We were placed in the corner, but hey, it was progress. It was like, okay, this happened. But as women's sports fans, that's not what we should settle for. And that's where we were like, okay, this has to get better and hopefully it will. So I think it's important to say that.
And then the second venue we went to was also women owned, and it was great. They had TVs everywhere and they had this private enclosed party table area with a couple TVs in it. And at this stage of the season in 2023, a good turnout was us two and then 5 people showing up. And that was a good day. Sometimes if they could figure it out, because it was a corporate place, they didn't have control of their volume or TV, their corporate offices did or something like that. And so it was always a struggle there that the game would not be on at tip-off. It would be into the first quarter, whereas they were on their iPad and talking to corporate, figuring out how to get the sound on and all these things. But it was just a slow progress over that first season of we're getting somewhere. And then came the playoffs. And we're still trying to find a venue. Finals in 2023. It was a pretty critical game, and the venue had to cancel because they said that we either would have to pay to reserve the space or we would have to cancel, because I didn't quite understand from the email. I felt like it was because it wasn't bringing in business, but I was like, but it says that you're open on Sunday, so can I just come in as a solo person to watch? It was a very weird thing. I just kind of felt like we were not wanted, and that's how the season ended then, of just being all this progress, and then just it was so damn difficult to find a place that just could put on a game and have the volume on. And that's how the 2023 season ended. And I was like, we're done.
Well, and now it's changed so much. When we first heard about it, I remember being nervous to go. It is nerve-wracking, even when you're in a couple, especially if you're alone, to go to something by yourself where you may not know anyone, where you've never been there before, where you know that the games are on. It can be hard for some of us to socialize, even an extrovert like me. So can you tell us what a watch party is like now and what it looks like and what people can expect when they come to a WNBA Club Denver watch party now?
Well, I am an introvert, so I feel like I have a special place in my heart. I would not want to go either to a big rowdy party thing. And so I have empathy for that, for anyone that is nervous to come or to come alone, to walk in and not really know what to expect, or feel then like you're stuck there and you have to stay there even though you might not be having fun. But coming to a watch party is a very friendly environment, and people just connect, and people do come alone and other people come alone, and then they sit together and they start talking about the WNBA. That's what they're all there for first. And it doesn't mean that everybody that comes is an expert on the WNBA either. People come that have old vintage WNBA jerseys because they've been watching forever. And then there's people that are new that haven't watched a game, but they've been hearing about it. But there's just really cool things that happened. And one example is at one of our watch parties, someone on a napkin wrote out all these facts about players and was sharing it with a person that this was their first time coming. And she was telling them their sexual orientation, telling them who was the best point guard, what's their point average, just really schooling them on the whole part of what the WNBA is all about.
She had a clipboard. She had a clipboard with a sheet of paper. She was prepared. She just had the whole scope of the entire game written down. It was
We need people
awesome.
like that. We need people dropping knowledge.
Yes.
And so I think it's supposed to be, and I hope people really feel this way, that it's just supposed to be a comfortable, safe space to come and test the waters and see if it's something you enjoy and want to continue being a part of, because I really do think that some great friendships and community are being made in these environments, because there's not been a space like this for people in Denver, and there's very few spaces like this across the country, starting with the sports bra, where you can go and just it be natural to walk in and be like, oh, the game's on. Awesome. And it's a space where you can come and not know a thing about it, but people will welcome you as well.
I think we can both attest to that as well. Being at watch parties, meeting different people, it's such a welcoming environment. And that's kudos to you both for creating that environment and giving people that space. So it's really been great getting to see it evolve.
And the other thing that I'll add is you'll see the same people over and over again, right? Our first time going, maybe I wasn't my usual extroverted self, but then you go again and you're like, oh, I've seen this person here before. And you just work up some courage. You go over, you start a conversation. It's really easy because you can start a conversation about the game you're watching, which is a nice little intro way in. And that's what I really appreciate. And if people are nervous, and I totally get it, if you keep going, you're going to see familiar faces there. And like you said, everyone's just really welcoming. And as Danielle said, that's a kudos to the both of you for creating that environment. So we really love it.
And what we've started to do now is have a little table at the door when people come in, so we can greet them, so we can get a vibe check on them of, do you have your people here? Do you not have people here? Do you want me to introduce you to people, so that they can feel comfortable when they come in? And if they're still not comfortable, they can always just sit with us, which is totally
That's
fine
awesome.
too.
Yeah.
Great idea.
You mentioned some downs with one bar bringing out a random TV, but have you all had a favorite watch party or your biggest highlight since you've started it?
Oh, yeah. So we have found a really great home at Lady Justice. They have been very awesome. They've been very accommodating to us, usually always available when we reach out to them. And that's been our space where we go. We have been a little bit more adventurous in trying to go to other places, because we know that everybody doesn't live in the same part of the city.
Yeah, that's great. And honestly, Lady Justice was our first watch party. That's the first venue we went to. And it was right when March Madness started. It was when Colorado was playing Iowa. It was that day. We walked in and we couldn't believe how many people were in there. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was standing room only. People were going nuts. It was such a cool environment. And we were like, how have we never been here before?
Yeah, we were kicking ourselves for not going to a WNBA club
earlier
event in the past, for sure. And now we've learned too, and especially with this explosion of women's sports, you got to show up early to places if you want to get a seat, which we are not good at.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think one of my favorite watch parties was during the March Madness. It wasn't the Colorado-Iowa game, but I think it
Was it the Kansas State?
I think it was when they played Kansas State. And I just remember being so excited. We had our big bracket that we brought with us and would fill in who would win. It's just so much fun. And I think that was my favorite. And that was when we were like, wow, so many people are here. And this was before we never got on the microphone. We didn't have giveaways. And I guess that's what you can expect at a watch party now too, is we try to have a giveaway. I think another one of my favorite things, it wasn't a watch party, but we had our fantasy league. And I think that was so much fun. And just the winners of all those leagues are getting a jersey, so we're buying them a jersey. And it's just things like that where we're just making that money and then putting it back into the community and just trying to make it fun and get things that people would want to win.
At your last event, there was someone with a table who was encouraging people to vote for elections. I was talking to him a little bit because we were next to each other, and he had never been to a WNBA club event before, but he bought a raffle ticket and got a WNBA t-shirt. And I have never seen someone so excited. He took his shirt off immediately, put his WNBA Players Society t-shirt on. It was so cool. I was like, we just made a fan in one day, and he was volunteering. It was really awesome.
And he was asking about the shirt. Oh, who makes this? So I told him all about Players Society and all about Esther. And I was like, she is an amazing artist and you have to go look her up. She's been doing this for so long and she's just in the past few years gotten big and it's so great for her. And I was like, so you got to go check her out.
I loved it.
Do you have a favorite moment or watch party?
Oh man, there's a lot of different things that I think back to and they're my favorite. But one of mine is ironically not a watch party, but we bounce ideas off of each other of, oh my gosh, we could do this with the WNBA club or this with the WNBA club. And something we talked about last year was someday we could be in the Pride Parade together. After we saw people showing up for our March Madness watch parties, we reached out to a smaller city Pride Parade that was coming because we had already missed the deadline for the Denver Pride Parade. Because I was like, I think actually people would show up for this with us and we could walk together and that would be pretty freaking cool. And so we were in the Edgewater Pride Parade, which is a small town that's kind of tucked on the west side of Denver, a really, really small town. And they have been in the past, I don't know how many years, been doing a small Pride Parade because that's one that we will go to because it's pretty chill. It has gotten slowly bigger and bigger and bigger through the years too. I don't remember how many people volunteered to be with us for the Pride Parade, but we gave them each a WNBA Club shirt as a thank you for participating with us. And before the Pride Parade, we had some of the volunteers that wanted to come meet us out, help make big cutout heads of one player from each team. So some people were like, sure, I'll come help cut that out and glue it together and whatnot. And just those kinds of things have been super awesome because it started out just like, we want to talk about the WNBA with people and see where those fans are in Denver, to people just genuinely wanting to do things related to the WNBA and through what I think the WNBA, the bigger picture of what it stands for, and come and help with stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. I also love the fat heads because they come to now to the watch parties, so you can take a picture next to Asia Wilson, take a picture next to Stewie.
Yeah. After we made them for the Pride Parade, we were like, that took so long. What are we going to do with them? So they just sit back in the room, and we will bring some to the game, depending on who's playing. We have one from each team, so we bring one player per team.
That's awesome. Do you foresee the Denver Pride Parade in your future?
So while we were cutting out these cutouts and stuff, we're like, people are talking about what we want to do for the Pride Parade, and people are like, oh, let's rent a trailer to hitch to the back of a truck and make a basketball court
so good.
on it and put a hoop on it, and just very extreme and excessive ideas for that. But I hope next year I'll apply early, now that I know that you have to apply really early for that. And we're going to get people, whoever wants to help build a float, we'll figure it out. And I'm sure between our community, we have plenty of tools and skills to build a bomb-ass float.
Put a bunch of lesbians together, our float's going to be so
It'll be great. There'll be hardwood floors on that nice 3-point line.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Measuring it out, making sure the hoop is at the right height.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I guess we can transition more nationally outside of Denver, and curious to know what your goal and vision is for WNBA clubs across the nation.
So I'm pretty nerdy about this, and I have a Google document that has all these goals and all these visions and futuristic things. And I didn't think that any of these things that happened this year would have happened in year 2. I am excited to see where we go from here. One of our big goals is to somehow be an official partnership of either the WNBA or an official partnership of the WNBPA, because the community of people that show up to watch parties and that are genuine fans of the WNBA are like, it's more than just the basketball game. And I think there's an opportunity or a missed opportunity if I don't try to reach out to them to make that connection, because I think the fan base, as it will grow in this type of network, could do some pretty powerful things. So that would be the ultimate dream. And then sometime in this dream world, having a tent at the All-Star game where you would come and find your city or learn about how you start a new chapter, or join the social network communication things that I'm working on right now, and just learn about it and what it is and how to get involved, and all of those things would be another big one too.
It sounds to me like, viewing you both kind of operate this on the outside, it may sound like really big dreams to you, and those are big dreams, but for me, I'm like, yeah, you guys can do that. Look what you did in a year. Of course you're going to be at the All-Star game, and the WNBA would be dumb not to partner to make sure that they have a solid fan base. And Dea, to your point, I do think the fans have a really important role and can have a really important role for advocating for the players. We'll continue to watch, but we need to make sure that the players are being treated correctly. I think there's so many directions that this can go, and I'm really excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I think I don't know if the WNBA knows about us, but I feel like they should. Our name, WNBA Club, is right under theirs on social media, which could cause us problems when they find that out, which I'm open to already. If we have to change the name, so be it. But if this is what got us for you to find us, that's great too. But yeah, I don't know what to expect, but I think long term, that's something that could totally happen. And it would just have to be done right. So that way it just doesn't go, I don't know, just I felt like the season there wasn't certain things that were in place for it to be set up for success. I would want it to be rolled out effectively. So just after having now 8 clubs across the country, is I learned something about each time that like someone wanted to start one. There has to be something in place, because each club is just kind of doing its own thing, and some are more active than others. And so I now have an application that's up for people to apply to have a club. So it's not just like they start it and then it's just left there, because maybe there is some actual super passionate and motivated fan that would have wanted to start it there and now they can't. And so this is making someone put in the work ahead of time to then see if they're serious about it.
And you're creating a brand, right? And so although each city is going to have its own flavor and how it operates, you do also want to make sure that when people go to a different city, and if I were to go to a WNBA club watch party at a different city, that I'm getting somewhat of the same feel, right? If someone wanted to start a WNBA club in their city, what should they do?
In the future, which is not going to be when the current episode of this airs, there will be a website that you would go to. But for now, if you go to our Instagram page, it's at WNBA Club _Denver. You can also go to at WNBA Club _nationwide, and that same link will be there. It's also a tiny URL link too, so I can say it so that people know it rather than it just being a really long link. So it's tinyurl.com /WNBA Club app, like APP, like application, that people can go to as well.
That's awesome. And we do have listeners across the country, so maybe someone listening will want to do that. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who wanted to go through this process out of something you've learned, what would it be?
It's actually one of the questions in the application is, where is your anticipated first venue that you're going to be at? Have you checked with the manager that they are going to agree to have the options of what channels or streaming service the game is on, and do they agree to have the volume on? Because I think going in and asking the manager or sending an email to the manager and explaining like, hey, we're going to be I want to be part of something bigger than just this one little club. This is a connectivity across the country and going in and asking, can you do these for us? This is the respect that the league deserves, and this is the respect that this club deserves. Are you willing to do that?
Yeah, that partnership is so huge.
Yeah, it really is huge because we're in our second year of doing this, but all the other clubs are in their first year of doing this. And some of the clubs that are slower with their watch parties, because we have our own little private commissioners group chat and we call each other commissioners, and they struggle with finding places that will play the volume or have the channel. It's the things that we experienced last year that they're experiencing this year. So I hope in time, as it continues to grow and the respect is earned or given, or just people respect the game, that it's not a strange thing to ask to put the volume on. We still experience that now, asking for different venues, where last year it was super difficult to find one venue to just consistently go to. Now we're branching out to find other women-owned businesses where it's still sometimes difficult to make sure they have the channels or the apps, or are you willing to put the volume on over the Denver Broncos?
It's interesting. I could talk about this for days because
I know.
I feel like whenever it comes to men in hiring, men's sports, they are given the benefit of the doubt based on their potential, right? And we see this in the workplace a lot. Men are hired based on their potential. And so many times in the workplace for women, they're based on their experience, not necessarily their potential. And again, we're seeing it with these watch parties. It's like, well, you have to show that you can bring people in before we can turn the sound on. And it's like, well, actually, if you just turned the sound on and played it, you would see an influx of people in here for that game. And it's so frustrating to me that that continues to happen. And Dea, I saw you struggling of earned it. Do we need to earn it? Why can't we just have the respect already that women's sports deserves to have sound? It's crazy to me. I'll get off my soapbox, but I just wanted to mention that.
You will be there.
It is a good point though, but we appreciate the environment you all have created, and you're doing the work that's really difficult to get places to get the sound on. 2 years ago, so 2023, before we had come to a watch party, we were at a venue watching on our own, and the men's games hadn't started yet for March Madness, so they had the sound on for us.
You should say the place. Call it out.
Stoney's in Denver. And as soon as the men's games started playing and people came in for those, they turned the sound off. And I go up to the waitress. I was like, we are watching that game. And she's like, oh, well, March Madness is starting. And I'm like, this is March Madness. Things like that. It's just, it gets me so upset and so angry. And it's happened to my sisters before. And it's just, now that we are starting to have this environment that you all are creating, I just really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think us and you both, that's not a strange experience. Every single person that is a women's sports fan has this experience and has had it many a times. I think it's just to the point where it's like, no, that's not acceptable. If that's how you're going to be, like, bye.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, like we won't come here anymore. Yeah, like we're gonna leave.
What was that place? Or sorry, I don't want to keep getting off.
It's okay.
Off topic,
I want to hear about it.
Like I said, we could talk about this for hours. We went into this bar just outside of the CU campus, and there was like another big game that was halfway over, and we really wanted to go watch it. So we went into this bar, and it was Super Bowl Sunday.
They just have on the 5 hours before the Super Bowl, they have all the analyzing and whatever going on. He was like, it's Super Bowl Sunday. We have the Super Bowl on right now. And I wasn't even there, but like, I feel like I was there. I don't know if you ever feel like that with each other. You experience things through one another. But I don't even know why I'm telling this, but I remember because I was so mad. I was like, what the hell?
But the game was going to be over before the actual Super Bowl started. But the
3
manager,
hours before the Super Bowl was going to start.
And we were like, you can't use just this one TV for the 25 minutes left in this game when there was 3 tables left in the bar and it was some important game. And he was just like, no, people are going to start coming in an hour and a half or whatever.
So ridiculous.
Like, okay. He walked around. He was really nervous for the day or something. And he came back and then was like, okay, I can put it on. He's like, but I have to at 2:15 exactly change it back. And I was like, that's still like 30 minutes before the Super Bowl or whatever is going to start. It was still like going to be over like
well before
for the one of 20 TVs in the whole bar. I'm so done with it.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch gears. Let's make it fun. You all are big WNBA fans. I'd like to know your favorite player in the WNBA right now and your most underrated underrated player? They can be the same, but want to hear your thoughts.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. My favorite player is 100% Asia Wilson. I don't think she's underrated. I think she is doing an incredible job. She won MVP this year. She could have won Defensive Player of the Year. She should have. I just love her personality. We've read her book. I've loved learning about her. I think she's just a great human being. And just to be vulnerable and share those things about yourself with whoever wants to read is amazing. And I've had a lot of debates about the most underrated player because I have 3 of them. But I think I'm going to go with, it's really hard, but I think I'm going to go with De'Erica Hamby.
That's great. And there's no strict rules. So if you want to say your other ones, we would welcome.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it was between De'Erica, Emily Angsler, who filled in for Washington when
that's my girl.
Shakira got hurt. Yeah, I know.
She's just such a hard worker.
And then I think one of my favorite things is watching the women in college and then seeing how they transition and then being excited, being heartbroken because there's not enough spots and just, all the things with all the women that you are following and fall in love with. Because when she was in, she was doing incredible. And I'm like, why isn't she starting? Why isn't she playing? She's doing so good. So then being benched again. So it's just really hard. And then I don't think Rakia Jackson is underrated, but I think she's underappreciated. And I don't know what was going on in LA, but we would be watching and we would be like, why is De'Erica sitting? Why is Azurá sitting? Why is Rakia sitting? What is going on? Why are you not playing these players? It's like they didn't want to win. And we also we were like, the LA coach is getting fired, Atlanta's coach is getting fired, and then I'm still waiting on it, but I think Dallas's coach is going to get fired. But so it's just, I don't know. You have these amazing players, but why are you not good? I don't understand.
Dea, what about for you? Favorite player and most underrated?
Asia Wilson is favorite player. Yes, she's incredible at basketball and the best MVP of MVPs, but I choose my favorite players based on their character and the vibe that they give off. And she's just completely positive. And so it's hard not to have her as a favorite player and just a favorite person. If I could sit down with anybody to talk Asia Wilson, I just feel like she's so inspiring to so many and just such a positive person, but also, like Lindsey said, like super vulnerable, that she has to be Asia Wilson, the Asia Wilson all the time. But I can feel like, or I have empathy for her in having that role and having that on her shoulders.
This warms my little Gamecock heart to hear so much praise for Asia Wilson.
Yeah.
We love a lot of the Gamecocks. So
yeah. And then I'll tell you my first and second underrated players. So my first underrated player is Ezi Magbegor.
She should have been on the All-Star team.
Just because, that for sure. She should have been on the All-Star team. I think her quiet persona makes me love her so much because that's who I would be, or that's who I am. And so I see these quiet people out there just killing it and just not getting the attention they deserve. And then the other one is Azurá. Her personality, she's so bubbly and positive. And I think just coming off of, I think it was a shoulder injury, and she was killing it for LA when she came back. It was like she had all this basketball energy built up that she was just on fire when she came back. And she was on my fantasy team last year, I think, too. And I just watched her get so good, and she crushed it in Chicago during the playoffs when they won. And I just think she just doesn't get enough talking about.
For sure. Those are great ones. Good ones for people to start checking out and looking at, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up with, how can people support the WNBA Club? Where can they follow you? Where can they find you? And do you have any upcoming events? We do have quite a few listeners from Denver.
Sure. So first thing, depending on the WNBA finals and how they play out, we're going to have a watch party on October 16th, which will be game 3 of the finals at the Ginger Pig. Shout out Jamie, who's the head chef there, who is a WNBA Club fan.
So good.
Their food is bomb. Yes. And so we are going to have a watch party there, guaranteed game 3, and then we'll have a watch party for a game 5 if the finals do go into a game 5, which I really hope they do. And so that location is TBD right now until we know what the time of the event is, because the venues that I've spoke to, the timing matters. So that's going to be kind of last minute. So in order to check those things and know where to be and at what time, joining our newsletter or our email list is the best way to, because we send out just a generic written email of, hey, here's what's coming up in the details, just straight to your email. So the link to do that is tinyurl.com/WNBA Club. And so you just put in your email, and then I just BCC everybody. And then we are on Facebook. We have a page and a group chat thing on there too. If you just find WNBA Club Denver, we're on Instagram at WNBA Club _Denver. If you're not in Denver, but you want to get connected with just the community on Instagram, it's WNBA Club _nationwide. We do have a Twitter, but I don't use it a lot. We have it in existence. We're on Threads, and soon, which I think when this episode airs, we'll have a Discord channel, and the link to that will be on our Instagram. And that's going to be for all the different chapters where you can choose your channel that you want to be on and connect however you want to connect with the WNBA Club community.
Awesome. So many ways to follow. Thank you so much, Dea and Lindsey, for joining us. That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.